Hello, hello, hello. Just checking to make sure audio looks good. See chat. Yeah, I think we're good. Welcome back. Um, First week back in the saddle. I think I want to cover more of that trial, and I think we'll call it after that. Um, it's been a rough week, to say the least. Hopefully, it's been a better week for other people. So yeah, we'll like cover the trial, and yeah, if there's any questions or anything like that. Um, so let's get right into it. So if you haven't been caught up, um, the Battle of the Nerds has commenced, and two of the biggest nerds are headlining this show. So yesterday we kind of covered there was a lawsuit Elon Musk filed against OpenAI and Sam Altman, the people who created ChatGPT and kind of kicked off this whole crazy AI fever dream that we're in. So yesterday, we covered kind of like the background of okay, how did they get intertwined? Who are these people? For like the people that don't know, how do they get intertwined? And kind of like covering what people said. So today, I want to cover the opening statements. Um, which if you're not big into law or court stuff, opening statements is, before you actually get with the trial, you could kind of like, you know, summarize your point and how you're going to go about, you know, proving that point, and the other people, on the other side can do the same thing. And it kind of just sets the tone for the whole trial. So then they did that, and then Elon went on the stand to testify. So we'll go over like the highlights of that. So on the left is Elon, on the right is Sam. So going straight into it, um, Elon, and I say Elon, but really it's his lawyers, but it's just easier to think like, okay, Elon's on one side, Sam Altman's on the other. Elon pretty much was saying that Sam Altman and OpenAI, they took his money or the money that he raised and abandon their morals, or essentially the mission. So I didn't know this before reading this, but OpenAI, the people who created ChatGPT, they originally were founded as a nonprofit, and they were not about making money. They're about making the world better, and uh, that's initially how they started. But they ran into a problem because they realized like to build the stuff that they want to build the AIs that they want to build, that they need a lot of money. And nonprofits is just hard to, generate that money because you can't just have investors and stuff. It has to be like through donations. And then, donations are a tax write-off, but it's not the same thing as me investing in this company expecting to get more money out of it. So So we covered last time that they were thinking about doing a move of having the nonprofit, but then starting up a for-profit company to generate money and do the technology, but the for-profit would stay in control. The nonprofit would stay in control and distribute the technology, the resources, what have you. Um, so Elon was saying that, Elon left the company because they had like this power struggle. And then they said, like, after he left, that all of a sudden they started this company and they made a bunch of money. They're worth billions of dollars now. Um, and they did it off the back and the mission that he had set out to begin with. Now, that was essentially the opening statements that like this is essentially the picture that they're trying to paint. They didn't put up any proof yet, but this is like what we said. This is like kind of setting the tone. So now there's two problems with this. One, Elon, before he left, because he created this company together with Sam Altman and a bunch of other AI research nerds. They started this company together, and they did say, and they had emails. They did say that Elon wanted a for profit company as well. Um, And then two, Sam right now has no stake in the for-profit company yet. So he doesn't get, usually CEOs, they get money, they get equity, so a percentage of the company, and then um they, their job is to grow the company, and then when they grow the company, that means their stake in the company grows, and then that's like their financial incentive. So Elon, and we'll go more in detail like into his testimony, but Elon in his testimony, he said yeah, and then they did say it in the opening statement too. His lawyers were like, yeah, he did want a for-profit company in, and have essentially the same setup that OpenAI has right now. They have the for-profit company, and then above that is the nonprofit. um And their argument is well, Elon, he wanted the for-profit company to get like the initial stuff going and eventually wind down that for-profit company. And while it's going and making money and getting investments, there's like strict controls of the nonprofit, when it's controlling the for-profit. The for-profit can't just do whatever. So he's arguing the opposite is like now OpenAI, they just do whatever. They're just making money, making new chat GPT features. They're not trying to save humanity. And that's like another recurring theme in Elon's testimony. And then the other argument that they make in the opening statement is to solve the second problem is like, yeah, Sam doesn't have stake in the actual company, but he does make money from all the other companies that he has that OpenAI works with. So that way he does make, a shit ton of money. So that's essentially, so there was kind of two problems in that opening statement, and then that's kind of um how they're going about it. So then for Sam and their opening statement, Sam and his lawyers and OpenAI's lawyers, and Microsoft was there too, because they were also named in the lawsuit, and they gave, I don't know, OpenAI's like first like bunch of billions. I forgot how much it was, but they're essentially like co-founders of this for-profit company. So Sam and his lawyers said, well, you're essentially mad and you're dumb, and that's why you're suing us. They're claiming that Elon is actually suing not because of this moral high ground. Oh, they're not saving the planet. That was the original mission. Oh, they're just money hungry. They're just mad. They're saying that he's just mad that ChatGPT did so well, kicked off this whole AI arms race, and now this company is worth billions, and Elon does not get a cut of it at all. He doesn't get any money. He doesn't get any equity. So he's just jealous and mad and bitter, and he's just being petty with this lawsuit. Um, they even put in, and I was like, oh man, that Elon, like when they were first like creating the company, didn't really understand like how AI worked really. Like he has this like moral stance on like, and I think everyone can have like that moral stance of um if you how you feel about robots doing stuff. Um But beyond that, like, because again, his whole branding is like, I'm a genius. And they're like, no, this guy really didn't understand how AI works. And then when they were trying to create that for-profit company under the nonprofit, he wanted a 55% stake. And, they were like, absolutely not. And then when they said no, that's when he left. And then, they got that investment from Microsoft. They, created ChatGPT. It popped off. And then now is like when he's decided to sue. So the kind of critical point for each side, so kind of like the strategy of what they're going to try to prove throughout the trial. So Elon has to make Sam seem that he's just money hungry, that he just started this for company for himself and like the other people who started it just to make money. They don't care about the mission. They're just caring about profit. And then the nonprofit, is just for aesthetics, like it's just so they don't get fined or whatever. Um, it actually doesn't control anything. They're not, doing enough good in the world. And so that's kind of like what Elon and his lawyers are going to try to prove throughout the trial. Um, Sam, on the other hand, they have to, and it's kind of arguably like kind of hard. Um, because Elon can just scream fake news, but Sam and his lawyers have to actually like go through like how the nonprofit works and kind of this whole weird structure between the for-profit and nonprofit and show how like, yeah, they're making a bunch of money, but it's going to the good of society. Like we're trying to cure diseases and stuff like that. And the nonprofit is you strictly in control. And they have to prove that Elon is actually the greedy one. And that really he didn't really care about you know doing good for society as he claims and all this, that he's just as he's more capitalistic and greedy, and he just wants to get he's just mad that he invested a bunch of money, he donated a bunch of money, and he didn't get anything out of it, regardless of like if they were on mission or not. So Elon testifies. um And the short of it is, well, the short of it is he kind of just, him and his lawyer just essentially ran through and talked about all of his accomplishments. I forgot some of the things that we talked about Elon's accomplished, like what he's done, but he did this XAI thing and has Grok, and then he has Neuralink, which is like putting a chip in your brain. And he was saying like, oh, that was also to help humanity. So then if humans and like AIs can live in symbiosis, like it would be great. And that's kind of what Neuralink was. And he kind of framed all of the things like where he made a bunch of money, and even the moves that he's done, like throwing his lot in with Trump was like for the good of society, this Western civilization, and everything he did was for the good of society. Like nothing was for money. He doesn't care about money. Apparently, he's just a good guy that just ended up making a bunch of money. Um, and then again, going back to OpenAI, when he founded OpenAI, he was scared of this guy named Larry Page, who's the co-founder of Google, the search engine. I want, maybe you've heard of it. Um, so Larry Page, the co-founder of Google, and a lot of other people, the super AI heads, um, they feel that AI is going to bring in like this utopia. Nobody needs to work anymore. Everything's going to be great. There's going to be no diseases, and everything will be fine. So apparently, Elon talked to this guy, and Elon is very scared of AI, which is why he said that he wanted to create OpenAI to balance out, to have like a counterweight, his words, to places like Google, because they're just built, there's no constraints apparently on their AIs. Like I think theirs is called DeepMind. um they don't, like, they're just letting it go. um And one of the quotes, which I thought was kind of crazy, is when he was bringing up to his concerns of like, no, like we should be prioritizing human benefit. We shouldn't just be making this AI. He was kind of quoting like Terminator and stuff like that, like these kind of disaster scenarios with AI. And then Larry Page, the the king that he is, was like, why are you being specious? Meaning, oh, like if there's digital kind of human life forms like these AIs and then humans, why are you just discriminating against the digital people? Which I thought was crazy. And these are the people that are throwing tons and tons of money, billions and billions of dollars into their AIs. So I kind of feel for Elon on this one. Uh if I had the money, maybe I would start a company to like not to be the actual opposite of this. I feel like it would have been better to just regulate it, but I mean, whatever. Who cares about my opinion? I'm just covering the story. Um, so yeah, so after this conversation is what kicked off him, talking to Sam Altman and all these researchers starting OpenAI. They, started this nonprofit to help put uh, help with uh, this kind of AI arms race and kind of giving humanity a chance, essentially. And they ran into the funding issue, so they were talking about this for profit. But again, he claims is like the way I was thinking about this for profit is different from how they're thinking about this for profit. I was just gonna have it just be, a small part of the thing, just raise the money, and that's really it, and do the bare minimum to raise that money, and um, and he says that he was the one to like come up with the name, which is like, all right, bro, you came up with OpenAI. I'm surprised you didn't put an X in it. He came up with the name. He found all the researchers. He raised the money or gave the money. Um, hey, hey. Um, he gave the money. So, which is, I guess, the justification of him asking for half of the company, the for-profit company. And he said he left because the other people were asking for too much equity. So it's kind of like a Spider-Man meme of, Elon's trying to say that the founders of OpenAI, Sam Altman, and like I think the president, they're the ones that were greedy, while uh while uh they're saying like, well, Elon wanted half of the company. We weren't gonna just let him have half the company. So it's kind of like, they're pointing to each other. Uh so I guess like that's gonna be kind of the crux of this um of this of this trial. So that's kind of, and then after Elon's opening statement, after he uh kind of pat himself on the back for all of his accomplishments and said how he's doing everything great for society, that the at the end of his testimony is when they called it. I think he's going to testify again today, so maybe we'll cover that next week on Monday to see what he said today. I haven't seen anything yet. Is there any late breaking? Um, I'm kind of looking. This was today. Oh yeah, they did. There was an update today, so I'll cover that Monday. Um, so yeah, uh, that's about it. We'll see where this goes. I'm sorry I didn't do the design demo. I'll promise I will do that Monday. After we cover a little bit of what happened today with Elon's part two. Um, and then yeah, we'll do a demo. I did hear like people wanted for me to demo some of the things that I built, so I'll try to like clean those up. Um, Yeah. Cool. So a little short one, but I've had a week, so I've been trying to still stick to the schedule of doing some type of stream, but I don't know if I can go another 40 minutes. Oh, wait. A question. Say it quickly. You're being timed. No, I'm kidding. I'll stick around. Um, um, writing out the question. Um, so the question is, in a hypothetical utopia where AI does everything, has anyone um, given thought to an idea of how society would work if we don't need money and stuff? Um, so I have two answers. There's like some science fiction worlds where they're like post scarcity and they live in this utopia. They can not only have AIs build them stuff, but they could just build stuff with their minds. It's kind of like space magic. And then how that turned out was it just devolved into debauchery and their society collapsed essentially. But other people have already kind of given thought to this. There was someone who ran for president called Andrew Yang, I think, and he had this whole concept of like UBI. So he's saying like, people are going to be so productive that a few people will essentially do the work to like support everybody. So then what do you do at that point? Then it's like, well, you could, do some sort of tax system and then give people revenue of that tax. So then at least they'll have income to buy food and stuff, I guess. But then what do people do with their time, I guess, since our whole existence of being has been around work or school and work at the same time. So not, you see a lot of retirees like right after they retire and then they don't have to work anymore, their health just goes down a shit ton. Um, everyone go to Disney World. Yeah, you just live at Disney World, I guess, if no one has to work. So yeah, so like I don't know what um I feel like there has been something like this already in society. Like I really like the classics, like Greece and Rome, like ancient Greece and Rome. And a lot of the motherfuckers that oh maybe I shouldn't cuss. But a lot of the people who were like, Socrates, Plato, they didn't really have to work. Like they were rich. Like they had people bring them food. They never had to like do anything. And they just thought about philosophy and then that's like what they did. Or, uh so I kind of see or they would like, write poems or some shit. I don't know what they would do. So I could see that like if we're in like a post scarcity world where we have AIs do everything, like grow the food, transport everything, build the things, and build houses and stuff, and like we just have to like, just sit there. And it's only like a few people managing the robots that's, supporting all society. But then like, people get to do like creative things. At least that's like the hope. Um, the other idea that I have in my mind is like already thinking about like in pockets of the country where like there's really nothing to do besides, and maybe you work, but you still have like your weekends and your nights. Like, what do you do? And a lot of people just like drink and fuck. Like, I don't. So that might be the end game of society. Like, people just, just fucking drink, do drugs, have sex, and then I don't know. I don't know. I try not to forecast too much, especially with this AI stuff. Like, you know, people, there's like two paths where, like, you know, the either what, like, the like Larry Page people, how they see AI of bringing in utopia. We might go down that path. what Elon's mentioning is like AI is going to destroy everything. There's that path. There's also a path of it just doesn't, at least the AIs that we're building right now, because they're all kind of built on the same technology, more or less, the underlying like, research and stuff like that. It might be that the like this version of AI doesn't even really do anything. It doesn't get to the point where, people would trust it to, you know, do things um by itself, or maybe it might be, mathematically, physically impossible to have an AI that's like, the holy grail is like AGI, artificial general intelligence. So like having literally like a person but in digital form. It might not be possible with like how they're building these AIs now and developing these AIs. We don't know. Like we'll only see after the trillions and trillions of dollars that people are dumping into it to see like where it kind of peters out. Um, so who knows? Um, so yeah, I'm a big I don't know. Big I don't know. But that's a good question. That's a good question. I'm not Nostradamus, but it's fun to speculate sometimes. Okay. So if there's no more other questions, with that, I'm gonna call it here. It's been great seeing y'all. We'll be back Monday, 6 p.m. ET. We're doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, we're gonna cover the trial and maybe do some demos of certain things. I'm not answering that question. All right, y'all. Sounds good. Like the stream, follow for more. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm on there too under the same name. So trying to grow those up too. I need to start, shipping out clips, but with time, maybe over this weekend. All right, sounds good. Bye, y'all.